On April 14, 1912, at 11:40 p.m., the largest ship ever built hit an iceberg in the North Atlantic. 2 hours and 40 minutes later, it was gone. Over 1,500 people died. And here's what no one ever talks about. The iceberg didn't sink the Titanic. The human brain did. Specifically, a set of psychological traps so powerful that even the smartest, most experienced people on that ship walked right into them. And the scariest part, you're walking into the same traps right now, every single day. You just can't see them. I've studied this event for a long time, not because of the ship. I don't care about the ship. I study it because of what it reveals about your species. 1,500 people had roughly 2 hours to save themselves, and most of them did absolutely nothing. Not because they were stupid, not because they were lazy, but because their brains told them everything was fine, and they believed it. Let's go back to that night. The ship hits the iceberg at 11:40. The impact is so gentle that most passengers don't even wake up. Some feel a slight vibration. A few notice their water glasses trembling. One passenger later described it as, quote, no more than a tremor. Within minutes, the ship's designer, Thomas Andrews, inspects the damage and does the math. He tells Captain Smith the ship will sink. Not might sink, will sink. In about an hour, maybe 2. And here's where it gets interesting. Captain Smith, one of the most experienced captains in the world, waits. He doesn't immediately sound a general alarm. He doesn't order everyone to the lifeboats. He waits. For over 25 minutes, nothing happens. Why? Because of something called normalcy bias. This is your brain's tendency to interpret new information through the lens of what's normal, what's familiar, what's expected. And in Captain Smith's world, ships like the Titanic simply did not sink. He had spent his entire career on ships that survived storms, collisions, and close calls. His brain had decades of data that said ships get hit and ships survive. So when Thomas Andrews told him the ship was going down, his brain didn't process it as fact. It processed it as noise, an exaggeration, something that couldn't possibly be right because it had never been right before. His experience, the very thing that made him qualified, was the thing that blinded him. And this is something I find endlessly fascinating about humans. You treat your past experience as a prediction of the future, and most of the time it works. But when reality changes, when something truly unprecedented happens, your brain keeps running the old script. It insists that today will be like yesterday. Even when the water is rising, normalcy bias isn't just a Titanic problem. It's happening to you right now, every time you ignore a warning sign in a relationship because things have always been fine. Every time you stay in a job that's clearly dying because it's been stable so far. Every time you hear news about a crisis and think, that won't affect me. That's your brain doing exactly what Captain Smith's brain did, rewriting danger as normality. But the normalcy bias was only the first layer. Because even when the crew finally started warning passengers, something even stranger happened. Most people refused to leave. Picture this. It's past midnight. The crew is telling passengers to put on life jackets and get to the lifeboats. The ship is visibly tilting, and the first lifeboat launched that night, Lifeboat 7, had a capacity of 65 people. It launched with only 28. The second lifeboat? Even fewer. Across the entire ship, lifeboat after lifeboat left half empty. In total, the lifeboats could have saved over 1,000 people. They saved just over 700. 300 seats went into the ocean empty, while people stood on deck and watched them go. Why? Why would someone stand on a sinking ship and watch an empty lifeboat row away? Because of something called the bystander effect, combined with pluralistic ignorance. Let me break that down. When you're in a crisis and you look around, your brain doesn't assess the situation independently. It reads the room. It looks at what everyone else is doing and uses that as a guide. If everyone around you is calm, your brain concludes, this must not be that bad. If no one is running, your brain says, there's no reason to run. On the Titanic, the first-class passengers were surrounded by other first-class passengers who were all doing the same thing, standing around, talking, waiting. Some were literally playing cards, and each person's calmness reinforced everyone else's calmness. They created a feedback loop of false safety. No one wanted to be the person who overreacted. No one wanted to look foolish climbing into a lifeboat if the ship wasn't really sinking. So they all stood there, collectively agreeing that everything was fine, while the bow slowly disappeared beneath the Atlantic. If you've ever been in a meeting where everyone clearly knows something is wrong but no one says anything, you've experienced the exact same phenomenon. If you've ever stayed quiet because everyone else was quiet, you've felt this. Your brain outsources its judgment to the crowd, and the crowd is doing the same thing right back to you. Nobody decides. Everybody drowns. Now, here's the part that genuinely disturbs me, and I want you to understand. I've watched your species do a lot of strange things. I've seen you start wars over imaginary lines on maps. I've seen you destroy the things you love most. But what happened next on the Titanic is something I still think about. There was a third psychological force at work that night, and this one might be the most dangerous of all. It's called authority bias, your brain's automatic tendency to trust and obey authority figures, even when they're wrong, even when following them puts you in danger. On the Titanic, the crew repeatedly told passengers there was no cause for alarm. Officers smiled and said it was just a precaution. The band kept playing, the lights stayed on, and the passengers trusted them. Not because the evidence supported trust, but because these were authority figures. Uniformed officers, the captain, the crew, people in charge. Your brain is wired to assume that people in authority have more information than you do, that they see something you don't, that if things were really bad, they would tell you. And so, when an officer smiles and says everything's fine, your amygdala relaxes. Your critical thinking shuts down. You stop evaluating the situation for yourself and outsource your survival to someone with a hat and a badge. This is the bias that gets people killed in emergencies. It's also the bias that keeps you stuck in systems that don't serve you. How many times have you followed advice from someone simply because they had a title? How many times have you stayed in a situation because someone in charge told you it was fine? A doctor, a boss, a parent, a partner who spoke with enough confidence that your brain said, they must know better than me. They don't always know better. The officers on the Titanic didn't know better. They were guessing, just like you would be. The difference is, they were guessing in a uniform, and your brain can't tell the difference between a leader and a costume. If this is making you rethink how you evaluate the people and systems you trust, do me a favor, hit subscribe. Because this is just the first layer of how authority manipulates your brain, and I have a lot more to show you. So here's the real lesson of the Titanic. It wasn't a maritime disaster. It was a psychological one. 3 biases, normalcy bias, pluralistic ignorance, and authority bias, worked together like a perfect storm inside 1,500 human brains simultaneously. Each bias reinforced the others. Normalcy bias said this can't be happening. Pluralistic ignorance said no one else thinks it's happening. Authority bias said the people in charge say it's not happening. And against all 3 of those signals, against the combined weight of your own experience, the behavior of everyone around you, and the reassurance of every authority figure, you would need to independently conclude that all of them are wrong and you need to act now. Almost nobody can do that. And I should tell you, this isn't just my theory. Researchers who study disaster psychology have found the same pattern in every major catastrophe. Hurricane Katrina, the Challenger explosion, the 2008 financial crash. Every single time, the same 3 biases show up in the same order. First, people deny the threat. Then they look around and copy each other's denial. Then they listen to the people in charge who are also in denial. It's not a coincidence. It's a pattern, a loop that your brain runs automatically. Not because they're weak, because the human brain was never designed for it. Your brain is a social survival machine. It evolved to follow the group, trust the leader, and stick with what's familiar. Those instincts kept your ancestors alive for 100,000 years. On the night of April 14, 1912, those same instincts killed 1,500 people. And here's what I need you to take away from this. These 3 biases didn't die with the Titanic. They are running inside your head right now, every time you assume tomorrow will be like today. Every time you look around and copy what everyone else is doing instead of thinking for yourself. Every time you defer to someone just because they sound confident or wear the right clothes. The icebergs in your life don't look like icebergs. They look like normal. They look like everyone's fine. They look like someone in charge saying, "Don't worry about it." They look like a relationship that's slowly going wrong but nobody mentions it. They look like an industry that's clearly shifting, but your company pretends it isn't. They look like a health symptom you keep ignoring because you've always been fine before. The people who survive in any situation aren't the ones who are fearless. They're the ones who recognize the bias in real time. who feel the pull of normalcy and the comfort of the crowd and the trust in authority and still choose to think for themselves. That's the only lifeboat that matters. Your own judgment. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these three biases have you fallen for? Normalcy bias, bystander effect, or authority bias? Tell me in the comments. I'm genuinely curious. As an outsider looking in, I think most of you will say authority bias. But I've been wrong about your species before. The Titanic showed us what happens when your brain betrays you in a crisis. But there's a manipulation tactic that's even more invisible than these three biases combined. It's the one used on you every single day by companies, politicians, and even the people who love you. And you've never once noticed it happening. That one's next.